If you know your party's 4-digit extension, please press 1. If you're requesting an application or general information for employment, press 3. If you need operator's assistance, press 0. If you do not have a touch-tone phone, please remain on the line and an operator will assist.
FBI.
Yes, may I please speak with the duty agent?
FBI?
Yes. I'm calling to follow up on a complaint that I submitted on December 6, 2013.
Okay, and how did you submit the complaint? Did you
I came down to...
Or did you have to do it in person?
I'm sorry, could you say again?
Did you, send us an email? Did you give a complaint over the phone with somebody, or did you come in? How is the complaint handled?
I came into 26 Federal Plaza, and I was given a complaint form, which I filled out, and then I submitted supportive documentary evidence, and I wrote a brief synopsis. And I also supplied one of the statutes that was applicable.
Okay, and you gave all this to the FBI police officer that was in the lobby of the building?
That would be Sergeant Herrera, shield badge number 1054, yes, sir. And I actually discussed some of the points with him.
So what happens when you come out and you fill out that paperwork? He then takes it and he passes it along to the appropriate squads that handle that. From there, it will get reviewed by that squad supervisor, and they will determine whether or not that's something they want to investigate or not. Once they make that determination, if it is something that they're going to investigate, they'll reach out to you and try and verify the information you provided, and or get additional information if they see fit. But not every complaint that is submitted is followed up with an investigation.
Okay, this was a complaint to the Public Corruptions Unit. So, what number do I call to follow up? Who would be the supervisor that I would be talking to?
No, you can't call that supervisor and follow up with it. If they need to speak with you, they'll contact you.
Yeah, I was told that there would be an FBI agent who would come out and interview me 2 years ago. So I've been waiting here for 2 years for one of you guys to come out. And I actually went to a satellite office, spoke to 2 FBI agents. They did a search at 26 Federal Plaza, and they said that there was no record of me making complaints. So it's my understanding that my complaints are thrown away. So then I had to go down and confront Sergeant Herrera. So I'm like, Sergeant Herrera, my complaints go to you, and then you're supposed to give them to the duty agent. They're supposed to be reviewed. And I was told 2 years ago that someone would come out and discuss this with me. This is fraud, Medicaid fraud at Rikers Island. And I provided documentary evidence that shows that the doctors at the mental health department at Rikers Island created false medical records and then billed for them to defraud the government in making a false claim. I was never a patient of the doctors, the crooked doctors at Rikers Island, and I provided irrefutable hard evidence of consent forms where the doctors themselves wrote in, refused to sign. Yeah, I've refused to sign the consent form because I was never your patient. And let's see, there was another social worker that presented me with a consent for mental health treatment, and again, she wrote it in her handwriting, refused to sign. Of course I refused to sign because I'm not your patient. And then about a day later, there was, and this is irrefutable hard evidence, there's a comprehensive treatment plan where their story changed from refused to sign to patient unable to sign. I'm not unable to sign it. If Rikers Island Mental Health Department wanted me to sign a consent form, I'm certainly available to do that if I had authorized these services or if these services had been provided to me. These are unauthorized services. There were no services provided to me, and basically these crooked doctors violated the New York State law that governs professional professional misconduct on the part of physicians, which I'm going to quote for you. This would be McKinney's, or New York State law, section 6530. And if you read wait, I'm not done yet. And if you read line item 26, performing professional services which have not been duly authorized by the patient, these doctors have violated state law. And then it's my understanding they had the temerity to bill for it.
Ma'am, I need you. If you submitted this information to us, it's not serving any purpose to go over it again with me. If you submitted it to us, then it was sent up to the squad that handles it, and that supervisor reviews it, like I said, and they make a determination whether or not they want to investigate it. If you've already submitted the information, you could submit it again if you would like, but I think you'd be wasting your time doing that. If you're quoting state law to us, we handle federal law. We don't have
this would be making, and in order to pay for the, excuse me, sir, but this would be violating my rights under federal law, and under 18 U.S.C. section 286 and 18 U.S.C. 371, they're defrauding the federal government in Medicaid fraud by getting the city, state, and federal government to pay for this. I was never a patient, so they created false records. I'm the stooge, and then they billed for it. And they got the city, state, and federal government to pay for it, because Rikers Island is a big business. And if they can use me as a stooge, then they can milk the city, state, and federal taxpayers to pay for treatment that was unauthorized and never provided. For example, I was never in group therapy at Rikers Island. So if the excuse me, sir.
No, I need you to listen to me, because I don't think you're paying attention to what I'm trying to tell you. I don't know why you're rehashing any of this. If you filed a complaint with us, then the information has already been received. We receive lots of phone calls here, and if you've already submitted your complaint, then that's all the information. There's nothing else that I can do for you right now. If you're trying to follow up on it, all I can tell you is that if you submitted it, it is being reviewed, or it already has been reviewed and been deemed something we're not going to investigate. That if it hasn't been 100% reviewed yet, then you might receive a phone call from an agent trying to follow up on additional information. If you have additional information you'd like to submit to us, I can give you a way that you can submit that. But
okay, how do I submit additional information?
Do you have a pen? I can give you an email address that you can send an email to.
Sure, go ahead.
It's New York, all spelled out, NEWYORK, @FBI.gov. And you can reference that you've sent in information prior and that you're sending in additional information. You can 100% do that.
Okay, my concern is that I'm a crime victim, and in addition to this, I also submitted a complaint. I'll resubmit it to the Public Corruptions Unit. I got into Rikers because the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, this would be Assistant District Attorney Alex Spiro, committed a federal crime. He suborned perjury by having Detective Cologne from the 34th Precinct, NYPD, lie on the witness stand. That's a very serious federal crime. Nobody's talked to me about this in the 2 years since 2.5 years since I was released from Rikers. I'd like to know why the Manhattan District Attorney's Office is being allowed by the FBI and the federal government to get away with suborning perjury. In fact, there was obstruction of justice because all the complaining witnesses lied on the witness stand, and the irrefutable documentary evidence that showed that they lied was deliberately kept from me so I would be railroaded. And the city, state, and federal taxpayers are now going to be stuck with a bill that's probably, the best guesstimate I can get from me and my attorneys, is over $250,000 by the time the appeal is done. And the fabricated excuse I get from the Manhattan District Attorney's Office is they have absolute immunity. They do not have absolute immunity when they violate my Sixth Amendment constitutional right to effective assistance of counsel, and they do not have absolute immunity when they violate my Fifth Amendment constitutional right to due process of law. Detective Cologne never did an investigation. He made a false arrest, and then he lied on the witness stand to cover up for the fact that he never did an investigation, because an investigation would have vindicated me.
And
so once again, I discuss
this.
this.
Evidence of that, you can submit that to this office. If you have already submitted that to this office, it either has already been reviewed, and like I said, deemed not something we're going to investigate.
You're not going to investigate. I was supposed to, you guys were supposed to send an FBI agent out to talk to me 2 years ago. So what you're telling me is that when a police detective lies on the witness stand...
No, ma'am, I'm not saying that. I'm saying if you have evidence of that, you can submit that to this office.
I did already. Like I said...
determine whether or not we find it to be credible or not.
Oh, it's in... sir, it's in the transcript. It's in the transcript, Detective Colon's testimony, where he says that I had a aggravated harassment complaint in 2008 against a major university here in New York. I never filed a complaint in 2008 for aggravated harassment. I filed a complaint at the district attorney's office in 2008 for federal student loan fraud that was deliberately covered up by Assistant District Attorney Jonathan Lenzer. But his intern, who happened to be a junior in college, this is someone with no legal training, it was so blatantly obvious that I was victimized in federal student loan fraud that his intern said, "Oh my goodness, you have a crime here." But Assistant District Attorney Jonathan Lenzer covered up for the crime. I was complaining about federal student loan fraud and federal Pell Grant fraud. Okay, those are federal crimes. So when my university lies to get money in a federal Pell Grant program that I was not eligible to receive, they have again committed a federal crime, and it's under the False Claims Act. So once again, I was supposed to be interviewed 2 years ago by the FBI, and the only thing the FBI is doing is covering up for...
The FBI doesn't, ma'am, I'm going to have to step right there. The FBI doesn't cover up crimes. And if you're alleging that the FBI does cover up crimes, I'm going to have to end this phone call right now because you're stating falsehoods.
Well, that's not true, sir, because in the transcript, the criminal trial transcript, Detective Cologne claimed on the witness stand, you know, these are 10 pages, I'll submit them. He claimed on the witness stand that my complaints against my school came after they filed false criminal charges against me. These are the facts. They filed false criminal charges against me in 2009. I filed charges against them in 2005, and in fact, Congressman Crowley's office verified that my complaints against the school came first. I had no retaliatory motive, and nobody wanted to do anything because for fraud in the administration of federal student loans, the school will lose its ability to administer these loans, these programs forever. So the consequences to the school are huge and irreversible. So I already have Congressman Crowley's office confirming that they wrote letters for me in 2005 and 2006, and the government was unresponsive. I already have Cheryl Fisher, a supervising attorney at the State Guarantee Agency, this would be the Higher Education Services Corporation, on an audio taped conversation that I posted on the internet for everybody to listen to, where she confirmed that my complaints came first in 2006. In fact, my attorney, Anthony Lombardino, was forced to admit that lots of people knew that I was complaining about my school first. So when Detective Cologne got on the witness, in fact, I was named as a witness against my school in 2006. So when Detective Cologne got on the witness stand in 2010 and said I didn't do an investigation because Lydia Radin's complaints against Yeshiva University came after Yeshiva University complained about her, he lied. And all the evidence that showed that he lied was in the hands of my attorney, who refused to cross-examine Detective Cologne, thereby irrefutably denying me my Sixth Amendment constitutional right to effective assistance of counsel and railroading me into Rikers Island, where I could be put in the hands of the crooked doctors at Rikers Island Mental Health Department so they could create false records to stigmatize and defame me in order to discredit me as a witness.
Right. Ma'am, I have to repeat myself again that if you have evidence for this, you can submit this to this office.
And what usually happens is, because I went to a satellite office and had those FBI agents call 26 Federal Plaza, they said we had no record of your complaints. So I was like, oh, so I submit my complaints and what, Sergeant Herrera throws them out? So
no, Sergeant, the FBI police downstairs, they're not permitted to throw anything out.
Oh, good.
They submit it up.
So
then it will be reviewed by a supervisor who will deem whether or not we'll investigate. We don't investigate every crime that we get complaints about. There are thousands of crimes that are committed a day, and we don't have the manpower to investigate every single crime, unfortunately. We would like that to be different, but it isn't. The truth of the matter is there are much more criminals out there than there are FBI agents to investigate them. So we have to figure out which crimes we have the capacity and the capability to investigate, and those are the ones that we pursue. And that's the supervisory special agent of each squad that makes that determination. So if your paperwork was reviewed, then it might have been deemed as not something we're going to investigate. If you'd like to submit something else to our office, you're more than welcome to do that.
You know something? You've just raised two really good issues, because the first issue is, what can I do to work with you to put a stop to these criminals? So instead of just blowing me off, and I'm not saying you did, I'm saying that instead of the supervisors just blowing you off, what they can say is, these are very serious crimes, and here's here's a couple things that we need to see. So, for example, in my case, there was case law, James versus SCS Technical Business Institute, that showed that a municipal court judge with a pro se litigant like me could enforce federal statutes to put a stop to federal student loan fraud. So I could provide that to show that there are judges who are co-conspirators with my school in federal student loan fraud and federal Pell Grant fraud. And then the other issue, which is also good, what we've been hearing from the U.S. Attorney's Office is that due to the sequester, the mandatory budget cuts, there are less and less prosecutors available and less investigators are available. And yes, we are going to continue to get victimized by crimes, us citizens, and the danger is we may starting to act like Chicago, where we have to form citizen groups for mutual protection, or God forbid gangs, to protect ourselves because there's nothing else that we can do. Or this demonstrates a need for a common law grand jury where we, the people, because you've just said you can't, will enforce the law and start to criminally indict these criminals. So what you've told me is that I can form a common law grand jury and start indicting these people, but my case is so serious that it involves a federal judge who's a co-conspirator. In fact, 4 federal judges who are co-conspirators in the crimes against me. So this is really serious when I've got, let's see, in New Jersey, I've got Ed DeFazio, the Hudson County prosecutor, who co-conspired. I've got Congressman Menendez, he's now U.S. Senator Menendez's office, who co-conspired. I've got lots of prominent people in New Jersey and New York. So these are federal crimes that speak to very big people. And Yeshiva University was found to discriminate on the basis of religion. When Bob Jones University was alleged to have discriminated on the basis of religion like 30 years ago, the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court, fabricated a ruling that revoked their tax exemption. In fact, there were no victims of Bob Jones University, a Southern Christian school. But here in the North, we've got an Orthodox Jewish school that was found to discriminate on the basis of religion. There was a real victim, and yet the federal government, the IRS, has not revoked Yeshiva University's tax exemption. So this is big enough for the FBI and the U.S. prosecutor to pursue. This is not piddly little criminals. These are big criminals.
If you could submit that to this office via that email address you have, but you have to do it in a clear, concise manner that you're kind of not all over the place like you are talking to me.
I'm not all over the place. I'm talking about litigation points, because when you take away a school's ability to administer federal student loans because they've irrefutably committed fraud, and they stipulated, this is page 364 of my criminal trial transcript, where the school stipulated that they fraudulently induced me into entering their school based on false promises in violation of 34 CFR 668.71b, misrepresentation.
You don't need to reference
the federal laws that govern administration of federal student loans. They stipulated to fraudulently induce me into entering the school.
Okay.
So when the school, I don't need a judicial. Wait. Let me just finish the thought here.
Ma'am, you are not listening to what I'm saying. I've told you numerous times that if you want to submit this information to our office, you can do so via the email address I've given you. There is.
But I've been doing that consistently for 2 years, and what I discovered by checking with a satellite office when they called in.
I know. You've already stated that, and that most likely means that the information that that we received was either deemed not credible or just not something that we're going to investigate.
How could it not be How could it not be credible when the school stipulated to fraud?
I can't tell you why it was not deemed credible, or whether it was deemed credible. All
The
I'm telling
school
you is that
stipulated. I mean,
you sent this information to the New York office. It has been reviewed or will be reviewed, but we can't promise to investigate every crime that we get calls about. It's on a case-by-case basis that we make a determination. If you wish to send something to this office, you could do so via the...
Hello? Hello? I'm sorry, my phone just cut out for a minute there. Did you lose me?
No, I heard you. I don't know if you muted your phone or what happened. But
no,
yeah.
I didn't mute the phone. It's really odd because it's only been doing that lately, for the last few weeks or so, when it never did that before. But in any case, and I'm saying this with respect, sir, so the excuse that I'm getting is, because again...
You're not getting an excuse.
Yes, you are.
I'm giving you the way we handle things.
Right, you either do this hand-waving, it's not credible, but how could a stipulation not be credible? That means the Manhattan District Attorney's Office and the school and the judge and my attorney and everybody agreed it was a stipulation. The school fraudulently induced me into entering their school based on false promises. That I don't need a judicial determination of fraud in the administration of federal student loans because they stipulated to it. So that's certainly credible. You know what I get from Dan Rozelle, who is a former bureau chief from the U.S. Attorney's Office. He makes up stories. He makes up lies. And when I discovered a falsified promissory note, he claimed that I had forged it, and then he had to admit that I didn't forge it because it was never in my possession or control. And then he had to make up more lies about why the school lied and said that I was a full-time student in 1995 to 1996 when I was in a program that the school explicitly defined as, quote, not full-time, end quote. So this isn't like me not being credible. This is the school making up lies, and I'm catching them in their lies. And then they misconstrued federal statutes to federal Judge Patterson in the Southern District of New York, claiming if you're enrolled in the school, you're a full-time student. That's not true. The school's enrolled students are students who just, according to federal law, which is controlling, are students who just register at the school, name, address, and phone number, but you haven't paid tuition and fees. And the power of the federal law that the only power the school has is to determine what combination of classes or work or research experience would add up to a full-time program. So those two statutes were misconstrued. Hello?
Yes, I'm still here, ma'am.
In order for the U.S. In order for the U.S. government.
You need to listen to me, because I don't think, I don't know why you haven't understood that if you wish to submit a complaint, you can do it via the email address that I've given you.
But I've been submitting complaints in writing for 2 years, excuse me, 2 years ago I got a phone call that said there would be an FBI agent out to interview me, and they're not, because they're helping Yeshiva University try to steal over $60,000 from me with the U.S. government, with the U.S. Department.
The FBI doesn't do that. You're alleging crimes on behalf of the FBI, and at this point I need to terminate this call because you're not listening or understanding what I'm trying to tell you. If you wish to submit something to the FBI, you can do so via the email address I already provided. But this is a call center, and we're receiving numerous calls, and I can't have you just rattle on and ramble about many different things.
I'm not rattling on and rambling. I'm telling you that a police detective lied on the witness stand, and my life is at risk. And what is the FBI doing? They're making up stories.
The FBI doesn't make up stories, man. Ma'am, I've listened to you allege multiple times to me on the phone that the FBI is involved in illegal activity, and that's not true. So at this point, I'm going to terminate this call. Thank you.